How do we make the world a better place? We need to look to the future, to search for sound solutions, to create sustainable practices, to embrace emerging energy. Ever wonder why rotational brownouts still happen in some parts of the country? We experience power outages when the affected power grid does not have enough supply. But supply deficiency is just one part of the equation. On the other side is managing the demand of end users, particularly energy-intensive commercial buildings that can put a great strain on the nation's power grid, especially during peak hours. Today, we'll learn how to develop more energy-efficient buildings and know the importance of developing cost-effective solutions that can help increase energy efficiency and reduce power consumption of commercial buildings. I'm your host, Antoinette Toss. Welcome to Emerging Energy, a program that focuses on the energy sector and the impact of conserving energy on a better future for all. One of the important features of the Energy Efficiency and Conservation Act is the monitoring of the energy-intensive sectors based on their annual energy consumption. Among these energy-intensive sectors is the commercial sector. The Department of Energy reaches out to these private commercial entities to provide further guidance on how they can help in managing the demand for energy. Through this, the DOE works to develop and deploy cost-effective solutions that help increase the efficiency and reduce the power consumption of commercial buildings. To talk more about the energy consumption of commercial buildings, we are joined by none other than our resident expert, the Department of Energy's Energy Utilization Management Bureau Director, Patrick Aquino. Director Patrick, welcome to Ayala Center, Cebu.
Thank you for having us. It's nice to be outside, and welcome to the Queen City of the South here in Cebu.
And of course, it's so wonderful to be able to learn such wonderful new things about energy conservation and efficiency. And to begin, could you share with everyone just what are designated establishments and what are their responsibilities under the Energy Efficiency and Conservation Act of 2019, or RA 11285?
We fondly call that the EEC Act. So our designated establishments are those belonging to the commercial, industrial, and transport sector with obligations under the EEC Act in terms of their energy consumption and responsibilities. They are categorized based on their annual energy consumption, which should be at least 100,000 kilowatt hours or higher. There are currently 3 classifications for designated establishments: Type 1 designated establishments, Type 2 designated establishments, and other designated establishments. In terms of their responsibilities, our Type 1 designated establishments are required to have a certified energy conservation officer, implement energy efficiency and conservation plans, and submit their annual energy consumption and energy utilization reports to the government. While for our Type 2 designated establishments, same responsibilities, but they are also to tap a certified energy manager or CEM. For our other, all are encouraged to undergo an energy audit once every 3 years.
That is truly incredible. It's nice to know how the Department of Energy is really keeping everyone accountable and responsible, because this is for our future, for everyone's future. Director Patrick, how much energy efficiency projects would you say were initiated by designated establishments based on the 2021 compliance of DEs?
On the top of my mind, Tony, it around 332 gigawatt equivalent of projects.
Can you give us a little bit of an idea of what that means?
So that translates to, staving off power generation capacity enough to power thousands, hundreds of thousands of homes, and equivalent to monetary savings running in the billions of pesos.
That is incredible. Speaking now, not just of the savings, but how big is the impact of implementing energy efficiency practices of commercial establishments in mitigating the climate crisis?
Well, their impact is really huge. because every opportunity, either they deploy renewable energy or implement energy conserving practices, results into avoidance of greenhouse gas emissions, contributing to, taking care of our Mother Earth.
To be honest, that question actually pretty much answers itself. Director Patrick, I know we are talking about the commercial sector in this episode, but of course we would still like to ask the Department of Energy if you have any practices, advice, and tips for the general public on how they can actually implement energy efficiency and conservation at home, particularly those that might even have small businesses or home businesses.
Of course, our focus and our constant reminder is always on the air conditioning, setting it at no higher than 25 degrees Celsius, making sure that the blades of your electric fan and the aircon filters are clean, and most importantly, being more mindful of how we use electricity, meaning unplugging or switching off those that we are not using. Those are our basic and always reminders to the public because those really do matter.
Truly, believe it or not, the little things matter, and together it truly makes a huge difference. After the break, we'll talk more about the energy consumption of commercial buildings in the Visayas region.
In the design stage, you need to establish first the goal. Say, specifically for the mall, you need to establish the customer experience.
In ESCOs, we offer services towards developing and designing energy efficiency projects.
Little things matter, and there are investments being done by businesses like Ayala to ensure that electricity is not wasted.
Now let's focus on how the commercial buildings in the Visayas region are complying with the Energy Efficiency and Conservation Act. We are joined by Engineer Michael Magpusao, Chief Operating Officer and Chief Engineer of Ayala Property Management Corporation. Also with us is Engineer Jedrick De Jesus, COO of OSP ESCO International. And of course, still with us is our resident expert, the DOE's Energy Utilization Management Bureau Director, Patrick Aquino. Welcome to Emerging Energy, Engineer Jedrick and Engineer Michael.
Thank you and welcome to Ayala Mall.
Thank you so much for joining us. And we would like to start with Engineer Magpusao. Engineer Michael, can you tell us what specific energy efficiency practices have you implemented at your establishment that resulted in significant savings?
Okay, in Ayala we're managing around 400 properties, and to make it consistent, our approach is life cycle. So we approach the energy efficiency not just on the operation side but also during the planning stage. During the planning stage, then we try to select the right equipment, the practical technology. Then during operation, we do implement governance. Energy efficiency is not all about new technology, but really the applicable one on specific establishment. That is how we approach the end-to-end life cycle of energy efficiency in Ayala.
Thank you so much, Engineer Michael. And it's actually very important to emphasize that whether it's sustainability, conservation, circular economy, once again, it is not always new technology. Sometimes, actually, most of the time, the basic principles apply, things we've been taught throughout our entire lifetime. Engineer Jedrick, this is for you. So based on the Energy Efficiency and Conservation Act, it was identified that energy service companies, or ESCO, are partners in the implementation of energy efficiency projects in designated establishments. Could you please tell us more about what are the advantages of an ESCO?
In ESCOs, we offer services towards developing and designing energy efficiency projects. We're towards performance-based and also guaranteed optimization. So it can range from energy audits to full implementation with operations of equipment.
We'd like to know more though, Engineer Michael. I know you mentioned that it's not always about new technology, but of course when we speak of things like circular economy, we say it begins with design. So what specific features or designs have you implemented to level up the energy efficiency?
Okay, in the design stage, you need to establish first the goal. Say, specifically for the mall. You need to establish the customer experience. Then from there, you will arrange the plan, specify equipment based on that specific goal. However, on the engineering side, you also need to align to the standard that was already been tested in the market, specifically for air conditioning, like the ASHRAE standard. So that is how we design things. We design based on the important goal, which is the customer experience.
That is truly wonderful to know. Hearing these wonderful initiatives, responsibilities, the accountability of companies that are really stepping up energy efficiency, are there any incentives being provided by the Department of Energy?
Well, in terms of incentives, we have two things. We have fiscal and non-fiscal. For the non-fiscal incentives, every December under the National Energy Consciousness Month, we have the Energy Efficiency Excellence Awards, wherein we provide incentives and recognitions for individuals, buildings, facilities, in terms of their best practices on energy efficiency. Now, for the fiscal incentives, we endorse energy efficiency projects to the Board of Investments, and they will be eligible for income tax holiday, tax and duty-free capital importation, but of course, it has to meet certain parameters. So the energy efficiency projects can either be simple or complex, new or strategic, as well as expansion energy efficient projects. And in the case of Ayala, they do have district cooling, for example, here in Ayala Center, Cebu, and that should qualify as an energy efficiency project for fiscal incentives.
Thank you so much to the Department of Energy for these wonderful incentives that are truly well-deserved for these incredible efforts. Engineer Jedrick, I know we mentioned earlier design. Now, I'd actually like to go to you to ask what specific features that you might want to highlight that you've established and implemented in your establishment to conserve energy.
Well, we started first with energy audit. So we measured to see where the biggest contributory of energy consumption, and it's where the chillers are. So that's our first plan of direction, is to change the chillers to high efficiency oil-free magnetic chillers. We are now focused on the customer experience. The nice thing of this equipment is that it can operate a wide range of features at still good efficiency.
Thank you so much for those responses. The little things make a huge difference. Up next, we'll talk about the policies and strategies to improve energy consumption in designated establishments in the commercial sector. Right here from Ayala Center, Cebu.
Protecting the environment and protecting the next generation is the most important role of our present leaders.
The government is one with you in this energy efficiency journey. We're all in this together because energy efficiency starts with us.
We've been discussing how the Department of Energy is encouraging commercial establishments to adhere to the Energy Efficiency and Conservation Act. Now, let's discuss the policies and strategies, because for all of these to succeed, we need a game plan. Still with us is our resident expert, the DOE's Energy Utilization Management Bureau Director, Patrick Aquino. And of course, Engineer Michael Magpusao, Chief Operating Officer and Chief Engineer of Ayala Property Management Corporation. For Director Patrick, we'd like to ask, what policies or initiatives has the government implemented to address the increase in energy demand resulting from high economic growth over the past 10 years?
Okay, what we have is the National Energy Efficiency and Conservation Plan, or NEECP. We did a consultation of it just fairly recently, and we're cutting across the sectors. Here, what we're doing in terms of building, we're encouraging them to observe the guidelines on energy conserving design of buildings, setting them up for success with baselining through the energy audits, and of course the typical reminders for both businesses in the residential sector to purchase or invest in more energy efficient appliances and technologies.
That's wonderful. There's so much support to really make this happen. Engineer Magpusaw, what long-term strategies or plans do you have in place to improve your establishment's energy consumption and, of course, reduce its carbon footprint?
Based on our publicly listed mother company, both Ayala Corporation and Ayala Land, both of them actually declared a net zero operation by 2050. So it's a public declaration that we really need to act on it. In fact, as early as 2022, we are already partnering with international audit firm to make sure that the accounting of Scope 1, Scope 2, and Scope 3 are correct so that when we do the planning, we have the right number. Because the right number is very important for you to do the strategic plan to meet the commitment of Ayala Corporation and Ayala Land about the net zero operation.
We can't wait to see what 2050 has to offer even sooner. And to Director Patrick, what tips can you provide to people manning commercial buildings to help them conserve energy and to go on this wonderful path that we've been discussing since earlier?
Well, the basic that we're telling them actually is go on an energy audit, because you cannot set targets and you cannot measure what you do not have information on. That's why the EEC Act itself requires an energy audit every 3 years precisely for that purpose. Because it's not just, going into this without any figures or targets. Every solution will be tailor-fit to the requirements of the designated establishments or businesses. And the deployment of RE, for example, or energy efficiency practices, they go hand in hand. So that's the best approach that we are advising everybody going into this journey.
Correct.
That is incredible advice. Audits are always important for energy, for waste, for the food that we eat, because of course, waste isn't waste until we waste it. So no matter what, it brings us savings when we take these kinds of measures. So now, Engineer Michael, Director Patrick, are you ready to play a game?
Of course, Uni, let's go.
So this is called the emoji game. Director Patrick is already very familiar with this. It's quite simple. You can grab the paddles that you've been given. And when I mention some specific topics, you can share what you are feeling about that topic with your emoji paddleboards. Now here we go. First up is DE, or Designated Establishments Compliance for 2023. What are your feelings about that? Oh, both happy from both the Department of Energy and from Engineer Magpusaw from Ayala Property Management Corporation. Could you share a little bit more about why the big happy face?
It's not actually the compliance per se, but it's really the wisdom of complying to the energy efficiency law. Because again, the energy efficiency law, as mentioned by Patrick, talagang really established the numbers so that there's no way you can go wrong if you really establish the numbers through the proper audit. Sa amin, sa Ayala, it's really a happy face because professionalizing, putting the right number will lead to the right energy management.
This is truly incredible. Baselines, research-based actions using actual data. Thank you so much once again, Department of Energy. But Director Patrick, could we know why you have the big smile?
Well, I'm happy because based on the numbers that I'm seeing, we're looking at greater compliance and we don't even have to impose penalties. And our message is always to the public that the government is not after to impose penalties to you. This is compliance that we're after. And we're with partners like Ayala, for example, setting the standard and the bar that, it's very aligned with what their aspirations are. That's exactly what these requirements are all about.
Yes, the DOE is not here to give penalties, but here to give incentives. Now, let's talk about incentives. How do you feel about these incentives? It's okay, we can be honest. Oh, okay.
Tama si Patrick talaga. Oo.
It leaves much to be desired. We're hearing our stakeholders. The incentives are a little bit challenging to come by. Since we are in a regime of compliance, I think we should be doing more. On the part of the DOE, of course, we're listening. We're trying to endorse and get more energy efficiency projects, but it's not a full happy because the number of energy efficiency projects entitled to incentives are not at a number that we'd feel that everybody will be happy. And that's why it's neutral, it can be worked upon. So there's room for improvement in that regard, Tony.
Of course, there's always room for improvement in everything. Engineer Michael?
Exactly. Actually, Patrick encapsulated correctly na may kulang pa. Pero the biggest challenge to the commercial sector is having an incentive is very important. But again, if you really focus on your goal, protecting the environment, protecting the future, do it now.
And of course, it's not really about the incentives per se. The biggest incentive here is a healthy and safe future, not just for our generation, but of course, more importantly, for generations to come. Thank you so much for playing our emoji game. We hope you had fun. And as we end the program, we would love to hear some final words and final messages from each of you, of course, about our topic for today, which is energy efficiency in the commercial sector. Engineer Michael Magpusao.
Okay, this is our commitment. This is the reason why we publicly say we will commit to net zero. Because protecting the environment and protecting the next generation is the most important role of our present leaders.
Thank you so much for that wonderful message, Engineer Michael Magpusao. And of course, to Director Patrick Aquino of the Department of Energy, who he himself runs on endless renewable energy. We all see that.
Well, our message always for our designated establishments and the public in general is that the government is one with you in this energy efficiency journey. We're all in this together because energy efficiency starts with us. So that is our message. So let's help each other out.
Thank you so much once again, of course, Engineer Michael, Director Patrick. There's no arguing that commercial establishments help keep our economy alive. Still, there should be no exception when it comes to adhering to the mandated energy efficiency policies of the Department of Energy. And of course, as our guests from the Visayas have explained, it can be done. It can be scaled up, replicated, and imitated across the nation. Thank you once again to our resident expert, the Department of Energy's Energy Utilization Management Bureau Director, Patrick Aquino. And of course, to our guest, Engineer Michael Magpusao, Chief Operating Officer and Chief Engineer, Ayala Property Management Corporation, once again for sharing your insights and your wisdom. Don't miss our next episode where we place the spotlight on the topic of renewable energy. I'm your host, Antoinette Toss. Thank you for watching Emerging Energy only on CNN Philippines.